Greetings, friends, and welcome back to the 3 Minute Horror Show. Today I'll be interviewing a veteran actor and filmmaker who's been very well known in the indie scene for decades. It's Jeff Kirkendall, and I'm beyond excited to have him here. Jeff, I'm so glad that you were able to take time out of your schedule to sit down and talk to me about yourself and your career in independent film.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Before we get started, would you like to give the audience a little background on yourself?
Well, I started making movies back in the mid 1990s. I started making independent movies back in the VHS days. Those were my first films were shot on that format. I also started taking theater classes around that time to try to learn to perform on camera because it wasn't something I did as a child. So it was a little bit later in life. I was probably in my late 20s when all this started. And I've been working on independent movies ever since. I've made quite a few of my own movies, and I've been collaborating with other people in more recent years.
Now, have you always been a creative person?
I think my creativity kind of started around that same time.
Okay.
The thing was, I was always I'm a big child of the 1980s. I'm very
Yeah.
nostalgic about the 1980s, and during that time, I went to a lot of movies. My friends and I went to the movies all the time. Prices were much cheaper, so we would see movies multiple times over and over again. In fact, and then, as I said, in the 1990s, I started thinking about, hey, could I actually could I actually be in movies or act on TV or perform?
Yeah.
Uh, and uh, and at that same time, I was in college taking communications, and I was fortunate to be able to take a couple of classes in video production. Again, it was VHS days, so I shot some stuff on video, did some studio production,
Mhm.
and that's what gave me the idea to start making my own movies. And everything kind of came together. The acting, I met some other filmmakers in the area who were making films. I learned editing and kind of integrated it all in. And so that's around the time my real creativity kind of started.
Okay. What kind of a kid were you?
I was a very shy, introverted kid,
Hmm.
friendly. I had some close friends, but I wasn't the party animal or anything like that. Uh, yeah, pretty much introverted, which is why when I got the idea to pursue acting, I knew I had to get training in it because it wasn't something that kind of came naturally to me. I met people that are outgoing and they could pick up acting right away because of their natural personality. But for me, it was a lot of training and so forth.
Hmm. What kind of things did you draw inspiration from as a child? You said you liked to go to the movies. What kind of movies did you love?
I went to all types of movies. I liked besides horror movies. I like comedies and dramas and science fiction. I really went to
Mhm.
all types of movies. I actually didn't. I act in a lot of horror and suspense movies nowadays, but I
Mhm.
actually didn't get into that maybe until I was about a teenager during the VHS home video days. I started watching some stuff on home video. But yeah, as far as going to the movies, I went to all types. We went to all types of films. It was anything. It was just exciting to be there and see all these things.
So you were saying that in your 20s, when you were in college, is when you decided that you wanted to try and make the jump into acting. What time in your life did you realize that you really wanted to create for a living, like to make your living?
Um, well, I do not make a living at this. Actually,
Okay.
this is what I know. Some people, probably some people you've talked to, it is their full time thing, and that's what they
Yeah.
do. I think that's wonderful too, especially
Yeah.
in the indie scene. I think it's fantastic. I have great admiration for that. But what I refer to this, the filmmaking and the acting and everything, is kind of my full time hobby.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to do something for a living that I do well enough with, and that I also have a lot of free time to be able to do this kind of thing. I've been able to pursue it now for the last 30 years or so. So that's I kind of jokingly refer to it as my full time hobby because I put so much time into it.
So, that kind of leads to my next question. You've been at this since the 90s, and that's incredible. And if you hadn't got into film, what do you think you'd be doing? What are your
Creative,
other hobbies? Yeah.
creatively. That's a good question. I used to when I was a teenager, before I became interested in making movies and acting, I used to play some instruments. I played guitar. I took guitar lessons for a long time. I
Hmm.
tried singing lessons. I really gave it a go at that, but after a lot of years of lessons and so forth, I felt there was really nowhere to go with it. I knew people that were doing the band thing, and they were out rehearsing every night and playing these gigs and everything. And it seemed like a really difficult existence,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Although I liked music, I was okay as a guitar player. Played a little bit of rhythm guitar. I wasn't fantastic. I was okay. So I did that. I still enjoy music. I'm a big music fan. My other big thing nowadays is retro gaming. I was a
Yeah.
big fan of the Atari systems back in the early '80s, and that's kind of made a comeback with the company coming back and so forth.
Yeah.
And I've been very much into that as kind of a second passion. I play a lot of that, and I actually write a blog about Atari and so forth.
I've got a whole section of questions about that coming up for you.
Oh, you noticed that?
I
Okay.
noticed that. Yeah. So, what was the first film project that you ever worked on? And what was that experience like as a first timer?
The first movie project I worked on. Well, okay. Actually, let me see. I think the first movie project I worked on was as an actor in a movie for my friend Bruce Hallenbeck. He's a filmmaker and writer. He did a movie called Black Easter back in my area. And I had a little bit part in that. Actually, that's how I kind of got into things. I auditioned for him, and I had a little bit part in that. That was exciting, just being on a film set, on a movie set, because I had
Hmm.
never been on a movie set before. And then after that, I did. Let's see, I think it was I did another bit part for another local filmmaker, a guy named Joe Bignardi, who's a friend of mine, who we still work together nowadays. He shot a movie on Super 8 called Shadow Tracker Vampire Hunter, a 2-hour vampire epic, and I got to play a vampire in a little bit part, no pun intended, and that was a lot of fun too. It was an action scene. And then right after that, I started making my first feature on VHS called Terror of the Master. It's
Yeah.
a vampire movie, which only got released a couple of years ago, actually. But that was back in 1996. We had a local premiere in 1998. Then I did some short movies shot on VHS. Then I did my first feature on digital in 2000. And I've done some more of my movies since, and I've done a lot of editing for other people too. And I work with different filmmakers and collaborative projects now.
Well, I noticed that in Terror of the Master, a very young, fresh-faced, well, of course, there's a very young, fresh-faced Jeff, but there's also a very young, fresh-faced Tim Hatch in that movie too, and you still work with him up to today. Like, have you guys always been friends?
Yes, actually, when I was making Terror of the Master, I connected with him. I think we might have. I think I might have helped him on a short film or two that he was making. Maybe it was around the same time as Terror of the Master, or
Hmm.
maybe before. He was shooting some stuff on VHS. It was all around the same time, and we became friends. I started doing behind the scenes work, and then he acted in Terror of the Master. And as we went along, probably about not too far through making Terror of the Master, I realized a big learning thing. I realized you really ought to get some people to help you when you make a movie. I just
Yeah.
kind of went out and was dragging equipment around, literally everything physically myself. And thankfully, Tim and a couple of other people kind of, I think, felt sorry for me. The actors stuck around and started helping me behind the scenes on that movie. And so Tim and I became friends. And then after that, we did a series of short films together on VHS. He produced and I wrote and directed, and he acted and so forth. And yeah, we've been friends since then, even up to today, where we work on Mark Polonia's movies as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I love to see you guys together. And Michael Korstich too. Usually when you see those three names in the credits, you know
Mm-hmm.
that the three of you are going to be together. So
That's interesting. That's interesting too, because Michael, I knew Michael from way back in the day too. He
mhm,
worked at a public access TV studio. Michael did,
yeah,
and I used to do some stuff down there, and we would cross paths a bit. And we worked on a little TV show there. And he made his own feature around the early 2000s. I acted in it briefly, and then we reconnected again. I think it was right around 2021 or so. It was during the pandemic.
yeah,
I was working with Mark, and we were doing a movie called Feeders 3, a sequel to Mark's sci-fi movies. And I connected with Michael and kind of brought him in on that one, so he acted in that one. So he's been doing Mark's movies now for about the last 4 or 5 years, and so
yeah.
we reconnected that way. And yeah, Michael's very cool. He I call him the man of a thousand faces. He plays these characters. He brings wigs and makeup and
Yeah.
looks completely different all the times. It's really interesting.
I did. I watched the one of the Rip Van Winkle movies recently that he was in, and I liked seeing all the different wigs that he went through that picture.
Yes, yeah, Rip Van Winkle. Yes, yes, he does it. He sings in the third one. Actually, I think it's the third one.
That's
Yeah.
the third one's the one I saw. So yeah.
Okay. Yes, yes.
So before we get into some of the projects that you're working on now, can we talk a little bit more about how you got to where you are today? You were making movies right out of the gate.
Mhm.
What was the industry like when you started off in the mid 90s?
Hmm. I don't know that I knew a lot about the independent film scene. I kind of knew what was going on in our area from
Hmm.
some of the people I mentioned. And I knew that my friend Bruce was doing projects and my friend Joe was doing projects. And, I started making movies on VHS. And then because I knew editing, I started doing some editing for them.
Yeah.
I also kind of knew some of the other filmmakers in the area. So I kind of had a sense of the local upstate New York scene. And really I didn't realize that there were all these people. Well, maybe it was actually, in the VHS days, it was probably a small amount of like pioneer people doing it,
Hmm.
across the country, but there were other people. At the time, I didn't realize that it was kind of pre-internet. So I kind of knew the local scene, and that was as far as I saw it. There was it was funny. There was a documentary made. We had a uh, we had a journalist from one of our local arts papers who used to cover the indie filmmakers back then in the
Yeah.
90s, early 2000s. And he made a documentary in 2002 called "Every Pixel Tells a Story." He shot it on the at that time the new mini DV tape format.
Yeah.
He interviewed almost all the independent filmmakers from the area, and it's kind of a snapshot of the new upstate New York independent film scene in that area. And so that's kind of what I knew up through those years. I wasn't aware yet that people were doing this across the country as well.
How did you promote and distribute your work back then, or did you?
I originally made copies of our movies on VHS,
Hmm.
and I created my own homemade box inserts for the VHSs. And then it eventually moved to DVD, and I did the same thing. I created the box inserts for several of our short films using software at the time, and I used Photoshop. I wasn't a graphic designer, so it would take me like a month to create one of
Yeah.
these inserts. And so it was probably around when we switched to the DVDs. I started self-distributing. We would sell them at some of the local screenings and things.
Okay.
And then in the early 2000s, there were some websites that were doing self-distribution. Basically, you would make a pile of your movies. You would
Mhm.
create them. That took a while too. That was a lot time consuming. And
Yeah.
then send the company, say, 10 of them, and they would put it up for sale. And after the 10, if they sold, then they would ask you for more. If they didn't sell, you would be getting it all back. So it was kind of fun creating that stuff, but it was, like I said, I was not a graphic artist, so it took a while to do them. I think they turned out pretty well. But the thing was, looking back on it, was very, very time consuming. Getting the paper and making the artwork, getting a duplicator to do the DVD, or duplicate the discs and so forth,
Yeah.
packaging stuff up and sending it out. So it was kind of creative at the time, but I kind of don't miss that because it took up so much time doing that stuff.
Right. So I was going to ask what, excuse me, in your opinion, how has the indie landscape changed over the years? What's gotten better and what's gotten worse? So it sounds like the technology has gotten better, certainly, and the method of distribution. You don't have to sit there and cut 100 DVDs and take all day doing it any longer. You can just distribute digitally. So that's one of the things that's gotten better for sure. But in your opinion, what else has gotten better and what's gotten worse?
Well, yeah, the distribution. I don't know if I'm in the same situation as a lot of independent filmmakers.
Yeah.
As you know, I've been working with Mark Polonia for a while now, so for
Yeah.
about 12 years or so, and he he started making movies even earlier than I did back in the mid 1980s, and
Mm.
because he's been in the business so long, he was able to establish relationships with several distributors. So when Mark
Right.
makes a movie, it's going to be put out by one of these companies. And
Yeah.
I've been fortunate to be a part of this. So yeah, I like it much better that I can work on a movie and hand it off to someone else and it goes out there. And then as far as the formats go, I do love physical media, and in a lot of the movies Mark makes, and some of the ones I work on with myself for myself and other people
Yeah.
still do get put on DVD, and they'll get sold on Amazon and so forth, which is wonderful. But the fact of the matter is, most people see these movies on streaming now, and I
Yeah.
know that because when our movies come out, they will come out on DVD and streaming around the same time. Around the same time, there might be a gap. Say, sometimes they'll come out on DVD first, and then maybe a month later on streaming.
Yeah.
And it's not until the streaming hits do you see all the reviews and people talking about the movie. I mean, we have some of our hardcore fans who say, "I just got the DVD, Jeff,"
Yeah.
and I thank them every time. But it's not until the streaming, when the reviews start coming up, people start talking about it, and you look on IMDb, the ratings start appearing.
Yeah.
So I think really most people are watching it that way nowadays, and that can only be a good thing. But again, I'm probably fortunate. I don't know if all indie filmmakers have the instant distribution that I've been fortunate to be a part of. Really.
Right, for sure. Yeah. So that leads us to the next topic, and that's your production company, Very Scary Productions. How did that come to be? How did you get that started?
Well, it was back when I was thinking about making my first movie. There's not a big story behind that name. It was a
Yeah.
name that popped into my head probably because I was into horror movies at the time, and it
Yeah.
came to me, and I thought, hey, that would be appropriate, and I bet people would get a chuckle out of it too. Because I figured I'd probably wind up making other things besides just horror movies. But I thought it would be kind of funny. It was just kind of a catchy name, and so I started using that, and I've kept it on all my movies since. And then lately, for some of Mark's movies, he's been kind enough to put it on there when we
Yeah.
do our collaborations too.
Like a co-production credit.
Yeah, yeah. So we have five production companies making each of our movies. That's pretty funny. Yeah.
So I've seen you in many, many movies. In fact, you on Letterboxd, you were my most watched actor for 2024 and 2025.
Oh, thank you.
And it's mostly through Mark's movies, but I watched some very scary ones as well. If
Sure.
you had to pick a favorite role in all the roles that you've played over the years, because you've got hundreds of credits at this point in time, what would that role be?
Hmm. That is a tough one. There are a few that I like very much. I've liked a couple of the more recent ones a lot. I really liked my part in Four Nights in Fear Forest, which is a recent movie.
Hmm.
I got to play this character named Malachi Bones, who's the proprietor of this scare park that's closing down, and he hires these people to come and clean up the place. And he's kind of a mysterious character, and I kind of got to give kind of a different delivery because of what the character is. And that's kind of become one of my favorite ones. Uh, and then and then another one that's pretty near to my heart. It's really out there was this scientist character named Klaus I played in Sharkenstein.
Yeah, I remember
Uh,
him.
yes, he he's a he has he's kind of a they called him a Nazi wannabe in the movie. It's
Yeah,
very tongue-in-cheek thing, but he's very German. Maybe he has a German American accent though. I did it very over the top.
yeah,
It's very way over the top character, and I think it's just a funny character.
yeah. He accidentally creates Sharkenstein, everybody, just so you know.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Around the film set, what role do you prefer? Do you prefer to be an actor or do you prefer to be the filmmaker?
There are advantages and disadvantages to both of them.
Okay.
Um, I think acting's kind of easier because you only have one task, and that is to become the character as much as you can and put yourself live truthfully in the situation that's going on as much as possible. So, I get a script, I try to understand the story, and then I try to memorize the lines mechanically, and then I
Mhm.
start putting something into the lines. It's kind of a very black and white process, and
Yeah.
I kind of end with uh, I talk out loud. I'll do my roles, say everything out loud 100 times rather than just internally. But I come up with a process, and so that's easier as far with directing, especially on indie movies. You're wearing like 50 different hats
Yeah.
sometimes because it's a small crew, and often besides directing, you're looking at other things on set, maybe doing set design, camera work, and so forth. So there's more to do, but I do like both. Like both things. The great thing about directing, if I write something and co-direct or direct, then when the project's done, you feel like you're at the helm of it. You really been the driving force behind the creation of it.
Right.
So each one has its good things about it, I think.
That makes sense. In addition to making the movies and doing promotion of the movies, do you attend many genre conventions or film festivals?
um, I hadn't I hadn't done a convention until for a while until last year. I think I went to a convention called Gross Fest in
Okay.
Pennsylvania last
Yeah.
year. Mark, myself, and Tim Hatch were invited actually. And prior to that, I think I had only done one. I think it was back in 2012. I had been invited to be a filmmaker guest at a local convention.
Oh,
But I mean, prior to that, I used to not go as a guest, but I used to attend a lot of conventions. I used to go to the Chiller Theater Convention in New Jersey for many, many years. And then before that, the first convention I ever went to was back starting in the mid 1990s. I started going to Fangoria's Weekend of Horrors in New York City.
oh, cool.
That was very exciting. I used to
Yeah.
take the train from upstate New York and for several years until like the early 2000s. And that was very exciting. Yeah.
Very cool. One of my friends got an award from you and Mark at one of the film festivals, Golden Groves in Western New York.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, Mike Bettino and him got an award from you and Mark. I think it was for Dingus Day.
Yes.
Yeah.
We ran into them yes, Mark, Tim and I were invited to go to that show. It was funny. I was in Pennsylvania working on a movie with Mark, and Mark
Yeah.
said another friend of ours invited us to go to that show to be presenters. We kind of worked it into the weekend,
Yeah.
and we went there. And yes, we did run into them. Yes, yes.
Cool. All right. So like many people, my first exposure to your work came through Mark Polonia, through the Polonia Brothers Entertainment Productions. How did you get linked up with Mark and his crew?
I met Mark at a film screening in my area in Albany, New York. It was in November of 2011.
Hmm.
Um, Prior to that, myself and some of the other local filmmakers, no, actually, prior to that, myself and and Bruce Hallenbeck, and actually, yeah, some of the other local filmmakers would do a lot of film screenings and events. I was very much into the local film scene and being involved in festivals and events and showing everyone's work.
Yeah.
And in 2011, it was myself, Bruce Hallenbeck, and another friend of mine. We had an opportunity to do a show at the New York State Museum in Albany, and we were throwing around ideas. And Bruce came up with the idea to do a film festival of movies by a filmmaker named Brett Piper from Pennsylvania. And so we set that up. We were showing 4 of his movies. Brett was going to come from Pennsylvania to Albany to do the show.
Okay.
And he emailed me the night before thanking me for being involved in putting the show together. And he said, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to bring my producer friend, Mark Polonia, along with me because Mark was a producer on one of the movies."
Hmm.
And so I wasn't familiar with either of their work. So I started looking them up. And I actually wound up watching a movie called Splatter Beach, which they had both worked on. And so I got to know their work a bit. And that morning when Tim Hatch and another friend of mine came in the door, we almost literally bumped into the bunch of them.
Yeah.
They had arrived in Albany after the 4-hour drive, and they decided they were going to skip the first movie and they were going to trek down into Albany to go get some lunch. So I immediately said, "Let me show you some places." So we wound up hanging out we wound up hanging out the whole day.
Yeah.
And Mark and I hit it off really well because we had a lot of the same experiences. We talked about making films and stuff. And so we decided we would keep in touch. And so we did over email and so forth. And then the next summer of 2012, Mark called me up and said, "Hey, I'm doing this sci-fi movie called Empire of the Apes. Would you like to come to Pennsylvania and play in the movie, be an ape?" And so I said, "Yeah, that would be great." And
Mhm.
as it turned out, he needed a couple of other people to fill roles, and I was able to get a couple actor friends of mine into my friend Marie DiLorenzo, who's in a lot of Mark's movies.
Yeah.
She got to play one of the other lead roles, and James Carolus, another actor, he
Yeah.
got to play an ape as well. So we all wound up being a part of that movie, and yeah, we've all continued working with Mark since then. So
Yeah.
it was a very fortuitous meeting. It really you couldn't. You look back in life sometimes about moments, but
Yeah.
that was a real it's a real defined moment. I mean, I could the things that happen, literally almost running into them coming out the door. If we had arrived 5 minutes later or 5 minutes before,
Yeah.
what I mean, it really was, yeah, something. So,
It's really, yeah, that I mean, I'm a Ploniac, and if that hadn't ever happened, I don't know what where would we be right now? I'm a Ploniac. My audience, I'll admit it, my audience knows this. I give 2 ratings of every Polonia movie, one for the normal people out there, and,
oh
one for
goodness,
the Ploniacs. And
bless you.
I don't mean normal in a derogatory sense to the movies, of course. I just mean they're they're not for everybody, of course. Like they're not if you're going into a movie expecting Titanic, you're not
Mhm.
going to get Titanic from Sister Krampus, right? But but
Mhm.
you'll get a very entertaining time. And I love seeing your name pop up in the credits. On the rare occasion that it doesn't in one of Mark's movies, I always wonder, geez, I hope Jeff is okay. Even if
Well,
you're only in it for a few minutes,
I try to do as many as I can. I mean, Mark does movies obviously that I'm not in.
Yeah.
That's fine and all, but I try to do as many of them as I can. I missed out of all the years I've been working with Mark, I missed one. I was
Yeah.
sick for one movie. I was sick one time and missed that movie out of all the ones we've done.
Which one was it? Because I remember you not being in one, but I can't remember which one was off the top of my head.
I was supposed to play a role in a comedy film called Snow Babes from a couple of
Okay.
years ago. And we were actually planning to do a comedy, something Mark and I were talking about. So I was kind of in the planning stages on that whole movie since
Yeah.
the beginning. But then I wound up being sick and couldn't do it. It was,
Oh man.
but it had Marie DiLorenzo and Jamie
Yeah.
Morgan and so
Hmm.
forth. I think Mark played my part. So, but it's very fun. It's a very good one.
It really does feel like you're all a family over there. And for the audience, we can feel that energy coming through the screen. What's it like on set for one of those movies?
Well, it is a lot of fun. We are all good friends. I'm very good friend with Mark and Tim and Michael, and it is a lot of fun. It's a lot of work also. You know, we'll shoot a movie on average, it'll take maybe between 2 and 4 days, most productions.
Hmm.
There have been exceptions. I did a movie called Amityville Death House, which I worked on with Mark way early on. I was there in Pennsylvania about 6 days. That's the longest I've ever been. But it generally hovers around 4 days or so, 3 to 4 days.
Hmm.
And basically, Mark will have the whole thing mapped out. He's very meticulous about scheduling and everything. And each day we'll start early in the morning, usually, 8 o'clock, 8 a.m., 9 a.m. And we'll usually finish up early evening. Occasionally there are later night shoots, but not ridiculous late. So it's a combination of we keep going. We shoot a lot of scenes in a small amount of time. It's work in that sense, not work in the physical sense of digging ditches or anything, but
Yeah.
it's you keep going. We break for lunch, but everyone likes one another, and people have a good time. So you have some fun too on along with it.
Yeah.
But we do shoot a lot of scenes in a really compressed time period for most of Mark's movies. There have been exceptions. We've done a few. Mark and I have done a few co-productions, and these have been my scripts. And Mark jokingly says my scripts are more involved. So we've shot some of our co-productions, my scripts in some segments. There have been 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 shooting dates because of the makeup of the movie. But a lot of Mark's movies are very compressed shooting schedule. The vast majority of them, three
Hmm.
to 4 days or so. So it's a combination of work and having some fun too.
Yeah. Do you often go, I can't, I've seen Mark's backyard and Mark's basement, I think 1,000 different ways. But do you often go do location scouting? Like, do you often do off-site locations as well?
We do. We do.
Yeah.
We've had some different locations.
Yeah.
Like, for example, we shoot a lot of stuff in Wellsboro, Pennsylvania, which is where he
Yeah.
lived, and Mark does use his house a lot
Yeah.
extensively.
And a college, there's a local college that gets used a lot too.
Yes,
Yeah.
Mark works for Mansfield University, which he would tell
Okay.
everybody, and so you see a lot the college used for a lot of laboratories, dormitories, all those kind of
Mm.
settings, medical research facilities, and so
Yeah.
forth. But we've done a lot. We've done a lot of off-site locations. Like, for example, an example would be we did a movie called Amityville. I'm sorry, Once Upon a Time in Amityville a couple of years ago, Western, and we shot at a lumberjacks museum. It's kind of a
Mm.
recreation of the Old West style. It has
Yeah.
all those type of buildings, and that was a really nice location. People say how good that looked. So we do sometimes scout locations.
Yeah.
When we did Return to Splatter Farm, we scouted and found a barn we were able to get access to that looked kind of like the original Splatter Farm location. So we
Okay.
went scouting for that. That's a good example. And then we've done actually in recent years we've done some road trips. We have a movie coming out this May called Shocktopus that
Okay.
we shot back in, I believe it was April. I think it was around April of 2024. It was in 2024, and we took a road trip to Ocean City, Maryland, to shoot that
Yeah.
on the beach and around the hotel. It was myself, Mark, Tim, and Michael. And so you see the ocean a lot. You're going to see the ocean in that movie, and that's the real thing. That's an example of
Okay.
going to another place for it.
Yeah. Where was Sharkula filmed? Because that was offsite too, right?
Sharkula, we shot
Yeah.
some stuff in Wellsboro, but Mark has a rents a boat for the summer at Cuca Lake in New York, and so some of the movies where you see the boat stuff,
Yeah.
it's at the lake we shot. Like, for example, that Jurassic Shark 3, we did a lot of
Yeah.
work there. I think Shark Encounters of the Third Kind. I think some stuff was done there too. Yeah, so that's an example of that.
Makes sense that Mark always plays the boat pilot guy too, then, hey? It's his boat.
Yeah, he's the only one who really knows how to drive the boat. If you see me driving, it's just.
What's been your favorite Polonia movie to work on?
Oh boy. Uh, hmm. No, I have a lot. I have a lot of fun on all of them.
Hmm.
Some of them are really, some are even more memorable than others. I mean, one thing that comes to mind, we did a movie called Sharkula a few years ago,
Yep.
and I have some really fun memories of that, just because I never would have imagined playing Dracula in a million
Yeah.
years. Mark said, "I'm doing this movie," and I read the script, and he said, "I want you to play Dracula," and I said, "Mark, yeah, I don't know if you're aware, but Dracula, in all the Dracula movies, the person who plays Dracula is usually tall, dark, and handsome, dark hair, dark eyes." You sure about this? He said, "Oh yeah, yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine."
It was fine. I saw it. It was good.
And so I got to play this. And it was just, oh yeah, it was fun, and
Yeah.
we had the heavy makeup in some of the scenes, and it's very, all that kind of lore. It was like, so that's kind of a good memory for me, just because it's so unexpected,
Mark's movies are so lore heavy. It's crazy. Who's writing all of this lore?
Hmm. He writes a lot of his own
Yeah.
scripts, and sometimes he has outside writers. John O. Dalton's written a few of the movies, like
Okay.
Jurassic Prey, for example, is a John script that's a pretty memorable one. But Mark writes a lot of his scripts, and then yeah, except for in the last few years, we've done a small handful of co-productions which I've written. So they
Yeah.
might, like the Stalking might have a certain different flavor because I wrote it, but Mark writes a lot of the scripts, so.
I'll bear that in mind because I have the stalking, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. But I will, and I'll give it a review too.
It's kind of a follow-up to Mark's movie, or him and his brother, they did a movie in 2000, I think it was 8, called Halloween Night. The
Okay.
Stalking is kind of a loose follow-up to that.
All right. So before we get into talking about retro gaming, can you tell us about some of the projects that you have coming up?
Well, we have two movies coming out in May. May 12th is Amityville Rex, which is a another movie featuring the priest character of Father Benna that I played three times prior. So this will
Yeah.
be the fourth appearance for Father Benna. It actually I don't know if a lot of people know, but this actually takes place in the time sequence after Amityville Exorcism, but before Amityville in Space.
Okay.
Uh, because Father Benna, spoiler, uh, met his end in Amityville in Space in a good way. But anyways, yeah. So this takes place before that.
Yeah.
It has Tim is in it, and Marie Lorenzo is the female lead in that one. That's going to be a fun one. We shot that back in 2024 also,
There's
and there's
Amityville in space. I had
so
it
we have
here.
so we have Amityville Rex coming out, and then as I mentioned, Shocktopus comes out a couple weeks later.
Mhm.
That's on, I think, the 26th of May. And that's a giant creature feature. A space amoeba turns this octopus into this giant creature, and these two Men in Black characters that played by Tim Hatch and I are sent to fight them off. Actually, this is going to be the first of two appearances for these new characters.
Okay.
So it's going to be cool.
I like to
Yeah,
see the characters come back.
yeah.
Father Ben is one of the only ones that does, though. So,
Yes, yes.
yeah,
That was been another surprise too.
yeah,
I wouldn't have imagined, number one, playing a priest, and number two, having a character that's been in four movies like now. Too. That's
yeah.
something.
You're a franchise now. You're the franchise. All right. So let's talk about retro games. Tell
Okay.
me, tell me all about your passion for Atari.
Well, like a lot of other people in my
Yeah,
age bracket,
yeah.
I got my first video game system. It was probably either 1979, 1980,
Mm.
1981, one of those years around there. It was under the Christmas tree, the Atari Video Computer System. And I played it a lot during those days, and all throughout the 80s. After that system came out, I got the Atari 5200, played that, played those games up until I went away to college in the late 80s. And like a lot of people, at some point I decided it has to be put away and put down in the basement. It got packaged away, and I moved on to other things in life.
Yeah.
And then I think it was around 2017, I saw on the internet there was this Kickstarter campaign, and some people claiming to be Atari were raising money to do a new console, which is unheard of because consoles that was Atari had been basically disappeared for 30 years.
Yeah.
They just, the industry had changed. Other people had taken over, and we know who rules those industries now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I heard about that. And then I was in, I think it was Walmart one night, and I saw the thing that really got my attention. I saw this book on the shelf called Art of Atari. This big coffee table book that had all these
Hmm.
colored illustrations. I picked it up. I said, Atari. I Atari. I forgot all about that. That was 30 years ago. I forgot all
Yeah.
about it. And basically, the book was about the graphic designers who made the incredible box art for Atari's packaging.
Yeah.
Because Atari back then, and I didn't know, I just played the games as a kid. I didn't know what was going on with the company, but Atari never credited those people
No.
anywhere, and they also didn't credit their programmers either.
Right.
For whatever reason, and it probably was, had detrimental effects on Atari at some point, but they never credited those people. But this book was the story about those people who created that amazing artwork. And so I read the book, and I was really fascinated by it. And then around the same time, as I saw the Kickstarter, I came across the website called Atari Age.
Hmm.
I started looking at it, and I said, "Oh, this is probably a history site about the company from 30 years ago." And I was surprised to see all these new games were being created. I couldn't believe it. People are creating these new cartridges for these systems, and not just a few, a lot of them. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe this whole scene going on. I was amazed at it. So basically, I was inspired to start playing again. I got my system out, actually got it out from the basement. Didn't work, so I had to buy another one.
Yeah.
But the box of games did work, and
That's good.
yeah, I've been playing since then. Not as much as I like to because time wise, I only get to do it once in a while. But I've been trying to play a lot of the games I used to play, as well as some of the new games like they call them the home brews and so forth. I
Yeah.
purchased a few of those. Are pretty interesting. And then a couple of years ago, I said, this is all really, really interesting stuff. I know a lot about this stuff. I feel like doing some writing again. I used to
Hmm.
write on my old website, which is still up. I used to write a column, just random stuff about movies. And I said, I'm going to do a blog, and I'm going to write about this now. This is really interesting to me. It's just a fun thing that I do, basically.
Yeah. And I've read some of those entries, and I think that they're very interesting. And I have played a lot of those games too. I
Mm-hmm.
my first system was also the Atari 2600. Like it was also the Atari VCS. My mom, I think she bought it for one of our birthdays, either mine or my brother's birthdays, and it was far after. It was probably 1983 or 1984, so after the crash had happened. So
Yeah,
things were a lot cheaper. So
sure.
yeah. But yeah, we had Kangaroo. That was our first game, and yeah,
Mhm.
we had a great old time with that until Nintendo came around. And then I was a child of the um, the 80s and the 90s. So the overlap for me was the 80s and the 90s. So I was really into the 8-bit Nintendo after that.
Okay.
But yeah, I love reading your blog entries about games like Sword Quest and about the Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark game that made absolutely no sense to anyone, but we still figured it out somehow. I don't
Yeah.
like we didn't have the internet, but we still figured it out. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, yeah, it's a lot of
Yeah,
fun. I mean, I do some game reviews, but
yeah,
I call them columns, but that's not what you call them. It's blog. It's a blog
yeah,
now.
whatever. Yeah,
I try to put some personal stuff in each
yeah.
entry if I can. I try to put some nostalgia and relate it to myself a little, not just okay. Here's the review of the game. Is it
Yeah.
good? So that's what I try to. It's fun. It's a fun
I
thing.
think it's good. I think it's nice to read, and you can call it whatever you want. If you're the creator, you can it can be a column, it can be whatever you want.
Hmm. Hmm.
You could call it a tablet, but
Exactly.
call it whatever you like. Oh, that's awesome. Are you going to so you've been active in buying the home brews and enjoying the home brews. Have you been active on the Atari Age? Is that site still out? I thought I heard something about it closing or
No, yeah, they're still out. I mean, yeah,
yeah.
I was surprised they were really what kept Atari, visible for all those years, and
Yeah.
yeah, they're still out. The big development was that Atari themselves now owns Atari Age.
Yeah.
That was whether for better or worse, that's the case now.
Yeah.
But yeah, they seem to be chugging along in the same way. No, I don't do a lot of posting there, but I check there a lot.
Mhm.
I haven't been active on it, but yeah, I like to look at it, and I have purchased not a lot, but some of the home brews. They've done some really great arcade adaptions in the home brews.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
usually what they call enhanced cartridges, so they're cheating a little. It's like 16
Yeah.
bit, but they're really amazing though.
Yeah. You got some little doohickeys attached to them to make them work better.
Yeah, yeah. They know the Atari system in and out. And they know what to do with it. Yeah.
For sure. So, what would you say that your favorite Atari game is? Like, what can do you just play that you can pick up any old time and just have a great time with it?
That's a good one. Well, back in the day when I was, a teenager, I was very much into the arcade scene too. It wasn't just the home stuff. I went to the arcades a lot. A lot of my favorite, I don't really have one baby favorite one, but a lot of my favorite games were the space games. I
Hmm.
was more into the space games than the so-called cutesy games with the characters and so forth.
Yeah.
Although I love I was very good at Kangaroo, by the way, in the arcade. Uh, my big game was Galaga back in the arcade that day.
Okay.
I have a I have a version of that for the 7800. I have a homebrew version of that. Uh, no, maybe I'm thinking of the wrong game. But I have the 7800 version that's very good on that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been trying to play some of the old one. I don't have really one favorite, but I've been trying to play some of the old ones. And every so often I try to pick a new one that I haven't played. Something I didn't play from back in the day,
Yeah.
or a homebrew and do that. But but some of the ones I've written about in the blog have been become favorites. There's one I was into for a while called Dark Chamber from M Network, which was Atari's Atari's competition for a while back in the day in the early '80s was in television, the Mattel in television. That was a
Yeah.
but Mattel eventually came out with a series of cartridges called M Network. They
Hmm.
ported their games for the 2600. So even though they were battling Atari, they still got in on Atari's on the sales. And Dark Cavern was one of their games. They had some neat
Okay.
games. I've been playing that one lately.
Do you play modern games as well or no?
No, I don't. I
No.
haven't played modern games at all.
Okay.
There's so much. I guess I'm kind of a product of the time. They look wonderful.
Yeah.
I just gravitate towards the 8-bit generation.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So, I don't know if you're familiar with my interview style, but I do a thing after we talk about our main topics called the lightning round. Okay. Where I just fire some quick questions at you, come back with the first answer that comes into your head, and don't be stressed. Some people get real stressed by this. It's not a stressful thing, it's a fun thing, and they're
Okay,
fun. Okay. So,
I'll
you
give it a
ready?
shot. I'll give it
Ready
a
for the
shot.
lightning round? Okay. What is your favorite band or musical artist?
Um, Men at Work. They were my first concert that I ever saw. So I'll
Okay.
pick them.
From the land down under. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Ninjas or pirates?
Let's see. Ninjas.
Ninjas. Okay, I was going to guess that you were a pirate guy, but all right, ninjas. Excellent.
Neither one of them are close to my heart, so I picked one.
Okay. Well, what's closer to your heart? Cowboys?
What's that?
What's closer to your heart? Cowboys?
I'd probably go with Cowboys. Yes,
Yeah.
they were
Okay.
my favorite football team back in the day.
Maybe I need to put in a third option there. Hmm. Yeah. Dogs, cats, or other?
Dogs.
Dogs? And if you
Uh,
were a breed of dog, what breed of dog would you be?
Beagle.
A beagle. You know what? I've asked this question three times, and all three times people have said beagle.
They're such friendly dogs.
Yeah.
My cousin had beagles, and they were members of the family. Really beautiful, animals.
Yeah. What is your favorite Universal monster?
Let's see, that's a good one. I'd say Dracula.
Dracula. I was going to guess Dracula because you've played Dracula too.
Yeah, that's probably why I said that. Yeah.
Toilet paper roll. Business in the front, over the top, or party in the back, back behind?
Oh boy, the first one.
Yeah,
That
over the
sounds.
top.
That
Okay,
sounds.
good.
Yes.
Phew. That's the right answer. Marvel, DC, or other when it comes to comics.
Uh, I was not a comic reader, but if we're looking at the movies,
Sure.
DC's got a little more bite to them.
Yeah.
They're a
Okay.
little more hard edged.
Yeah, and you know what? That Clayface movie that they're advertising now looks pretty good. I
Mm.
think it's the first comic book horror movie that's coming out for like on the big screen. Yeah,
Oh wow,
yeah.
wow.
They're turning a Batman villain into a horror movie. So yeah,
Yeah, they're a little darker. They're a little
yeah,
darker.
yeah. What's your weapon of choice in the zombie apocalypse?
Oh boy, uh, a sword.
Sword, excellent. No ammo. It's smart. It makes sense.
I think so. Yes,
Yeah.
I think so.
If I were to mix you up an adult beverage right now, what would your preference be?
Let's see. A whiskey sour.
Whiskey sour. Good one, good
Yes.
one. And finally, what is your favorite television show of all time?
Oh boy, let's see. Do I have a favorite of all time? I don't have one favorite. Let's see. Do I want to go back in the day? I know you said not to think about it too much, but
Yeah.
what did I really watch? What did I really watch? Hmm. Boy, I'll go back in the day. How about Land of the Lost?
End of the Lost. Great answer.
Mhm.
And I believe it was Sid Croft just passed away a couple of days ago, didn't he? Yeah.
Yes, I've been seeing a lot of Land of the Lost. I guess they call memes on Instagram. There's
Yeah.
an account that always has the Slee Stack, which were my favorite characters. They're
Yeah.
always on there.
All right. Well, you survived the lightning round.
All right, cool.
Excellent.
Cool.
Good job.
Sure.
Jeff, thank you so much for being here. If you had asked me last year if I'd be sitting here having a virtual face-to-face conversation with Father Benna, I would have thought you were crazy. But here we are. We're sitting right here. And you are just as wonderful as everyone says you are. I'd be glad to have you back on anytime. We can talk about any project you want, publicize anything that you like. Thanks so much for showing for being here.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I had a really good time doing this, and thanks for having me on your show and being so nice.
I'm glad. I'm glad that you had a good time too. If someone in the industry happens to be watching this and they want to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm on a lot of the social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Threads now, uh, LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel. You really can't miss me. But probably Facebook Messenger or Instagram, one of those.
Perfect. All right. Thanks so much for being here, Jeff.
Oh, thank you, Ben. I appreciate it.